Welcome to Microworld Talks. I'm your host, Xavier Gallego, VP of Brand and Marketing, and I'm delighted to take you with me on our journey to grow the future of materials. Thank you for tuning in.
Today we're talking with Heather Wildman, co-founder and designer at Wildman Chalmers Design. We will discover all the design decisions that were needed to create the Populus hotel in Denver. And we'll also discover the role of Reishi within the interior design of the building. So stay tuned and let's get started. Hello, Heather. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know that you're very busy, so I appreciate your time.
Yeah, of course. I was looking forward to this chat.
Super.
So thank you.
Of course. Well, if you heard our podcast before, you know that the first question that we ask is, when was the first time that you heard the word mycelium?
So the first time was actually probably when I was about 15 years old. I was taking an advanced biology class.
Wow.
And I did terribly in it, but I was artistic and the professor allowed me to do hand sketches to make my grade higher because I was failing. So I would stay after school and do these hand sketches of nature and cells, and my museum was one of the hand sketches that I did for the professor so that I could pass the class. But that was a long time ago, and I think there was a big gap between there. And now, more recently, I've heard of it in different ways.
Oh, that's cool.
But that was the first time.
Do you still have the drawings?
No, actually, I wish I did. I had a lot of them, and I got rid of them years ago. But it was a little bit of a sore reminder because I couldn't pass the class. It was good and bad. I had to use my art to pass the class.
I mean, very smart. One thing that you just made me thought about is that one of our co-founders, Phil Ross, uses sketching and drawing nature as a way of observation and learning. So it seems like you were doing that when you were 15 years old. So
yes.
Did you draw a lot of mycelium?
Just that one. It was one because I didn't know what it was. And so I remember it because I had to draw it, like you said. So my memory is very visual. That's why I did poorly in the class, because I wasn't good at memorizing words. So they made me draw things, and that's how I could remember them.
At least you find your way. That's really cool. So from drawing it when you were 15 years old to using it in a project, a most recent project, there is the Populus Hotel. What can you tell me about how that project came alive?
So we have an amazing client who we partner with for years, Urban Villages. And so they have trusted us because we have this relationship to continue with their goals, which, a lot of what they're founded on is a reverence for nature and sustainability, but also great design. So we had a trusted partner who brought us in, and that was huge because you already have that communication, right? You already have that trust, you have that partnership. So that's how we were introduced to the project. They had already hired Studio Gang to design the building. They then brought us in as partners to do the interiors.
So how would you describe, for the folks that don't know about the hotel in Colorado, how would you describe the project? Like, what was the idea behind? What was the concept, the bigger concept?
Jeannie Gang really could speak to it better than I, but my understanding is that when she arrived, so Urban Villages, the owner and the partner that hired me, interviewed her. She arrived, my understanding was from the airport with a backpack, and she went on a hike in the woods in Colorado. So this is the story I heard, and she was inspired by the aspen tree. And, that was how she interviewed, like went for a hike and then met with them and then, came up with her concept. So that's powerful to us. So everything was founded on, this inspiration of the aspen tree. And as far as the architecture, it's monumental. It's, beautiful. It's stunning. It's very pristine. It's, this white facade that has these aspen eyes that are alive almost because they're all different and they have different depths that block the sun and move the rainwater. And then on the inside, what we wanted to do was honor that inspiration and take that metaphor further, but in our own way.
So how did you do that?
I think again, just it's really fun because we got to use our imaginations, and we had this inspiration to build off of. So as I mentioned, the building is this pristine white, and the inside has the part of the architecture that was to remain is a concrete core that's gray color concrete. And so our goal immediately was, okay, how do we envision the tree metaphor, but in a rougher, more contextual way of being in the forest rather than playing off the actual physical shape of the tree, which is more what the architecture is. We were playing off the experience more and trying to create something less pristine, warmer, rougher, more welcoming, and sensory.
I like I like everything that you're saying, but like the sensory part, it's something that's very interesting because I've heard that you mention it sometimes. You added a lot of details into the work that are not meant to be seen, and they're meant to be felt. And that reminds me to something that we're trying to do at MicroWorks and in biology in general, is to make visible the invisible, And I don't know, it resonated a lot to me. And I would love if you can give me some of the examples of the things that are not meant to be seen, but to be felt.
Yeah, so I think generally that concept is a part of how we work, which is the art of subtlety and thoughtfulness. So where we're, thinking about all the details and the importance of everything. You may not visually see or understand every detail, but as you move through a space, all of these, thousands of decisions and design details are kind of felt as part of an overall sensory experience. So a specific example would be the concrete floor, where we took concrete, which is normally very gray, and we stained it a brown. And then on top of that, we were very careful with choosing the aggregate to be specific colors that were what you would, a local aggregate that would be locally on the forest. You would see, pebbles. And we actually worked on grinding it down and in different sheen on the floor and depth so that it varies as you move through the space. So I think most people would just come in and walk on the floor and say it's a concrete floor, and they wouldn't necessarily understand everything that went into it to create this variety of specific floor, which is very special for the hotel.
The way I'm hearing this is that you find harmony in a space by a lot of small decisions well thought out. And then the space gets, like a consumer or like the person that uses the space doesn't necessarily sees all these decisions, but feels that everything is thought out.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so
Another
cool.
example would be, even with the furniture, if you look at the restaurant furniture, when you walk in perspective, it's all very similar in tone. And that's meant to not distract you from the overall experience. We used a very cohesive palette for the entire first floor so that you're able to, it's not screaming at you. Again, it's subtle, where it's cohesive, it's welcoming. But as you move through, everything appears to be sort of brown tones and neutrals. There are so many layers and so many different materials. There are velvets, there's wools, there's different textures, different metals that have different sheens and everything. So from first glance, it's like, oh, it's neutral, it's calming. As you move through and your eye will start to capture all these details and you start to feel these details as you use the space. But when you're just walking in, it doesn't scream. It's beautiful, it's calming, but it doesn't scream.
Yeah. I love how you achieve that through the palette that you use, the colors that you see, the textures that you feel, the light reflecting in the materials that you use. And that is a good segue to one of the materials that you use, which is Reishi. Tell me more about it. What was? How did you find Reishi? What did you feel when you touched it the first time? Tell me the process on using Reishi within all these universe of decisions to create the Populus Hotel.
We had numerous design charrettes where we imagined this sculpture growing out of the core, folding out of the core of the building. And we had themes that we knew we wanted to incorporate, which layers and light, softness of material, something that could be a wonderful material for creating the sculpture we envisioned. And I had seen, I think it was mostly internet when we had done searches for the product. I can't remember how I heard about it the first time, but I definitely had seen MycoWorks and Reishi as, they have some great marketing. And so I'd seen their products mostly related to fashion. That's how I'd seen it at first. So then when I started looking, I had discovered this prior to the hotel, knew about the product because of my fashion interest and sustainability. So that's really how I knew about the product. When we started looking into what alternate materials can we use, we were looking for something that fit what we were trying to do with the hotel. I think I was just doing more research on the reishi itself and found MycoWorks and hadn't seen the visual of its raw form before until we started doing research for this project. So I was excited to see the images of the raw material with a professional company. That's why I was interested in them, because we knew we were, taking on a huge project, this huge sculpture, and we wanted to partner with someone who had already done, the extensive research and that was very professional. That was important to us because we were already taking a risk. So immediately we wanted to work with MycoWorks, and I remember there's no phone number on the website. Where I just filled out myself this, info.
we get those forms.
Yeah.
But we look at them. We look at all of them. So
I know. Well, I was surprised they got back to me because it basically said, if you don't hear from us, it's because we're too busy.
We are, and we've been busy. But every time that we see a really interesting idea, concept that fits into our journey, we do as much as we can to make it part of our history. And this felt like it felt like a go, to be honest. It was like and we were excited because even that first moment of you guys responding, that doesn't always happen in this internet world, right? We are very approachable. We answer a lot of people. I'm proud of that. I think from top designers to students, we try to answer everybody. And hopefully we can keep that energy going, because I think that's a very mycelial behavior, we know that to grow, you have to associate. And I'm glad that we answered you, to be honest.
Yeah, it was good energy from the beginning, is my point. You guys were great. Your response was wonderful. We partnered. It was an immediate, easy to communicate, which is always a sign, when you're collaborating with so many people and things so complicated, you really need that to, have these partners that are easy to communicate with. And so it's a fun experience too. So that,
Thanks.
I think that translates into the visual is my point.
I take that as a beautiful compliment, so I appreciate you saying that. I want to know, you've seen the photos and the videos that we do, and we do a good job, but then the material comes to you and you can touch it. What happens? What did you feel that day? You're a very feelings and emotions type of person. What did you felt?
Well, I think what struck me, one of the things I loved was the smell, which I didn't expect. And it's very subtle, but I really loved it. And then also the softness. The photos, again, like you said, you have great photos. I could see the rawness in those photos, but to really touch it and feel the softness. And then also just the variety, which the surprises of, how each sheet, the rawness of the edges, the color palette. I mean, everything was perfect for this because it just was a lot of variety, but subtle in the variation. Similar color tones, but imperfection. It was, what we wanted. We wanted this raw material, and we just felt it was beautiful in its raw form. So it fit perfectly with what we wanted.
So good to hear. And let me confess that when we did the press release, I learned a new word in English, which is gantry.
Okay.
And I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
It was the Reishi tapestry gantry. Can you tell me what it means? I mean, I obviously search on
Well, I think it came, I think we moved, it was some initial language that came from one of the owners, and that's more related to, I believe, boat architecture. So we did move away from that term because we didn't label it gantry, but it's a more naval term is what my understanding is, of something hanging above. But we sort of renamed it to the Reishi tapestry because we liked the word tapestry.
Hmm.
Again, sort of about coming together too, and the partnership, how it's all woven together to create this whole project.
So, and we're very close to the opening, if it didn't already happen. Have you been to the place? Are you proud of the atmosphere? Like, what do we have to expect if we visit the Populus Hotel?
It's unusual because I am part of, the entire experience, like what the napkins are, what the coasters are, what the menu paper is. So again, we're able to control this atmosphere. So it's taking it to another level than most design projects where the color of the font, the ink on the paper, many, many things, every dish, mugs at the coffee shop, everything is being considered so that it fits within this natural palette. So it's pretty wonderful.
It looks like it. It also looks like a lot of work and a lot of collaboration that has to happen with your studio. So is that the way that you work at your studio?
It is not just me, for sure. Yeah, I have an amazing team. I couldn't do this without my team. So we have several team members at Wildman Chalmers that are helping on this, as well as collaborations with their teams. There's Fowler Architects in New York City who are the architect of record for the interiors. There's Catherine Holmes, who technically her role has been called art consultant, but she's done so much more. We collaborate a lot with her on all these details. And we were lucky specifically on her to work with her on selecting some of that, locating it, helping decide the areas where the artwork's going. She's the one that helped us with this Reishi tapestry find the local installers who helped make it happen. So we have someone who had to build a steel structure to support the tapestry, and another great team member, Meg, who is a leather upholsterer who sewed all the sheets. So Mark and Meg have been huge on helping with this, beyond us designing it. And we've had mock-up meetings, and it's really been a lot of fun to meet these people and collaborate with them.
Yeah, I can imagine that from the sketch to the reality, you need a village to make it come alive. So yeah, I'm impressed. I know there might be not only a lot of like things that you thought out inside the hotel, but also the amount of people behind every single decision must be impressive as well. So one thing that I want to ask you, so you're a designer, you obviously have a lot of work on your portfolio, and I'm wondering what's the role of a material like reishi, like this new category of materials that we're creating with mycelium and other materials that are coming into the world. How do you think that will impact design in general and your profession in particular?
So I think for interior design specifically, the options can be many. I think that, we'd love to see it as elevator cladding, for example, for, almost a wall covering on walls.
Yeah.
I say elevators in particular because we need, that's a good example of where we need a fire rated material.
Uh-huh.
So the technical properties are great for that. And we're always looking for a unique way to make elevators special. But I could see it, as being a wall covering in many interior design aspects, and then also as an upholstery. So I think I would love to see that taken further. I think, upholstery is one where you can imagine either a one-off piece of furniture or something built in. I could see it as even a countertop material. We have amazing, when we do a bar, people touch it and they want to lean on it. And I think the softness of it would be amazing as that as well.
Oh, very looking forward to see what you can do in the future with our material, because you seem to have very good ideas. So that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. Normally, I finish our podcast with a question that everybody answers differently, and it's what sustainability means to you.
To me, it's a responsibility that we all have, every day, both in our decisions, but professionally, it's, bigger for me because of what I do. So similar to what I was talking about, every decision we made, beautification, we try to make for sustainability, because it's all those, small decisions, when they add up, can make a big difference. So it's a huge responsibility, which I think was only, increased in weight, that responsibility, when I had kids. You always think about the future and the earth that we live in, but when you think about we need to make this world right for them as well, and that future hits home. So.
It's a great one. I'm going to write in my head, sustainability is a responsibility. And I like that, how brief and how strong it sounds. Well, Heather, thank you so much for being an amazing partner, for being here today. And hopefully the people that are listening to the podcast enjoyed our conversation. And I hope to talk to you soon with more projects and more things made with mycelium or other materials if possible. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. This podcast is being hosted by Xavier Gallego, produced by Mari Nathans, and edited by Corny Pallardo.